This is Nathan Horowitz with an excerpt from Gateway, Mexico, Adventures of Another Gringo Who Wanted to be a Shaman. This is the first of 4 books in the Nighttime Daydreams quadrilogy, and this is chapter 1, called The Author Decides to End It All. There's an epigram by Rumi. No physician gives medicine to the healthy. I will become all pain, if I must, to be given the remedy. Chapter 1. The author decides to end it all. Moonless, clear night, northern Michigan, February 1985. Frozen lake glowing dully, snow crystals reflecting the Milky Way. 100-foot wide spiral is developing on the surface of the lake, curving clockwise toward its center. Inscribing it with his shuffling feet is a tall, gangly white teenager. Navy blue down jacket, leather Patagonia hiking boots, gray wool cap with a Greenpeace patch sewn on. Wide green eyes and a small chin give him the look of a hairless cat. The boy's lips are moving. What's he saying? Guy, go, guy, go, guy, go. Chanting to the rhythm of his steps, he shuffles through 4 inches of powder snow and starlight atop the ice. Left foot guy, right foot go. Boot soles don't leave the ice. Guy go, guy go. An acronym from computing. Garbage in, garbage out. The quality of the input determines the quality of the output. This explains my life, he's thinking. What can be expected of me if the input was so bad? He's drawing the Gago spiral both as a landscape art piece, homage to Robert Smithson's 1972 Spiral Jetty, and as a signal for help to whatever god or gods might deign to glance down. Sucking the freezing air into his lungs, trying to stare into the future as the seers of old were said to have done, he feels the closeness of the spirit world, but he can't reach it. Recently turned 17, he's the most intelligent and most fucked up person in the world. He wants to fly up and dissolve in the cold wind that glides without thinking above the frozen land. His body can't support the transformations he wishes to undergo. Therefore, he would like to die. To die, that's what Elena wanted, or didn't want. She's with her family in Miami now. In the middle of the night, she stood in her shower with a razor blade pressed against her wrist. Finally decided to withdraw from the school instead, leaving him without her mad mind that matched his own. Every time he goes inside himself, all he feels is pain. It's the core of his being. If he were different, he could get it out by hurting people, punching someone, joining the military and killing people in foreign lands, or getting a pistol and shooting his classmates. Each bullet that left the barrel would pull 1 nail out of his heart. But any time he's ever hurt someone, he's ended up feeling worse than they did. So he's left with no one to harm but himself. He thinks again about jumping off the balcony in his dorm and breaking his leg. The pain would give his mind some clarity. Or shooting himself in the forehead. 1 blast and all the thoughts would be gone. He's convinced if he survives to adulthood, he'll be a great poet. All the signs are there. He's lonely and sensitive. No one really understands him. He feels more intensely and thinks more deeply than other people. He's willing to endure the suffering he knows the muse requires. The words of the poets who came before him are flare guns burning holes in his darkness. From the history of literature, he has inherited hundreds of barrels of rusty symbolism. And he can turn a phrase, turn it into a lion, scratch it under the chin so it purrs, dissolve it in a shower of sparks. He trudges on, guy go, breath plumes lit by stars and snow. Here in northern Michigan, at Interbergen School for the Arts, the boy majors in creative writing. He's no good at short stories, can't imagine plots or characters, There's no narrative drive here, the fiction teacher said. But he can take a thought and coat it with words and let that dry and peel it off, and that's a poem. By the time you're 21, the poetry teacher said, you'll be publishing in the best journals in the country. And despite his psychological problems, for the first time he's one of the popular kids, maybe because everyone's a bit mad here. It's all the art that does it, or the sunless winter. Some girls even like him, maybe because at close range he smells of mad genius. Maybe they'd like to be able to say, decades later, I messed around with the famous poet when he was a crazy young man. Or maybe they just like him. But it's not easy for him to see why. Since he was 13, the inside of his head has been like a Stephen King novel about Hieronymus Bosch and the Marquis de Sade on vacation in Auschwitz. The boy didn't ask for sick thoughts, doesn't want them, can't drive them away. They live under his roof like a nest of flies. He's almost gotten used to their buzzing songs about rotting and shit. He thinks they may even be the real him. They tell him to hurt people. They tell him he'll like it. He figures they're the spawn of the rage and jealousy he feels toward normal people. Happy people. Stupid, sleeping people whose souls weren't ripped in half when they were 4. Visions of torture swarm him like fanged, beaked demons around St. Anthony in the Renaissance paintings his dad showed him in museums. So, will he be the crunchy prey of madness? The next Charlie Manson? Jack the Ripper? I'd rather die, the boy swears as he goes forward, seeing his tall, gangly body lying in a coffin, dressed in a dark blue suit. His dad's brother and sister hold up their collapsing brother. His mom wails in her grim second husband's arms. Womb to tomb, baby. Guy, go, guy, go. What keeps the boy alive? Literature and lovemaking. The first time he and Elena did it, he couldn't believe anyone had ever enjoyed it as much as they did. Afterwards, breathing each other's breath, they cuddled like Adam and Eve, sweat and brown hair mixed and mashed on their pressed-together foreheads. But now she's gone, and most days he feels like screaming. He reaches the center of his spiral, pulls off his mittens, jams them in the pockets of his navy blue down jacket. Wind whistles and moans. If I shot myself in the forehead now, he thinks, the wound would become a whistle, a clean, empty hole moaning in the wind. He reaches for the sky and silently begs the winking stars to take him out of this dream. When they don't, and when he's done feeling the cold air whip across his hands, he quietly retraces his spiraling steps and heads for the dorm and Brubaker. Vibram soles, car tire black with a thin line of yellow, trickle snow melt on the doormat. Cross-legged on his bed, cheeks flushed, the boy holds his icy toes in his hands to warm them through damp socks. A dim smell of wool and foot. For a few moments, the only sound is the punk song on his roommate's stereo. Guitar, bass, drum kit, and incoherent shouting. Then Brubaker erupts. She didn't want to kill herself. If she had, she would have done it instead of just talking about it. Speaking of talking, you're a pretty good talker. Why don't you talk some sense into your head? Quarrelsome, haughty, sad, pissed off, convinced he's right, the boy stares at the floor and chokes out, everything I've heard about people who commit suicide says that they sometimes do talk about it. So if anyone ever says they're contemplating suicide, his voice rises, you should take that really seriously. I'll tell you right now, I'm thinking of killing myself, and the fact that I'm telling you is no guarantee I won't. Brubaker shakes his head. That's bullshit and you fucking know it. Nat, man, I know your parents have got you convinced you're a genius. You're their only kid, I get that. But if you are, you're the dumbest goddamn genius I've ever met. Plenty of geniuses walking around here are a hell of a lot smarter than you. Leaving the damp footprints of a genius or madman, the boy stalks into the bathroom, fills an empty Sprite can from the tap, takes a bottle of aspirin out of the medicine chest, stares for a second in the mirror at his own eyes like green and black pills. He plunks back down on his bed, unscrews the child-proof cap, plucks out the cotton, shakes a white tablet onto the moist palm of his left hand. The music has ended, and the room is quiet save for the humming of amplifiers and of the fluorescent lights above the boys' desks. "I'm gonna fucking end this," he tells Brubaker in the sudden stillness. "Right now." His roommate watches him gulp the first aspirin with a swig of water, then the second, then the third. But ultimately, Brubaker's right. He doesn't quite want to die. After 20, he smacks can and bottle on his desk, saying, "Now go get whoever's on duty. They have to drive me to the hospital. Go." A 30-something doctor with a broad brown beard gives him a blue hospital gown, a little bottle labeled syrup of ipecac, and a huge steel bowl to vomit in. The boy screams bile into the concave mirror. When it's over, his and the doctor's eyes meet. The doctor seems to see some value in him that he doesn't see in himself, and with his eyes asks him not to do anything like this again. At the same time, the doctor looks as if he'd love to beat the hell out of whatever's